Welcome to the Pantheon Plus Rewind.
Hello, everyone, and what a week it has been. But before we get to that, I'm excited to welcome you all to yet another edition of the Pantheon Rise of the Fallen Rewind. Today marks our 45th episode, but if this is your first, we're a show that covers all the news and topics around the upcoming MMORPG Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. We look into Twitter feeds, Reddit, forums, and make sure to keep our fingers on the pulse of the community. Of course, couldn't do this alone, so let me introduce you to my wingman, Cleric. How's it going? What's going on in the Great White North up there?
Well, I'm happy to report that we are no longer in the polar vortex. It's moved on and we are back to just being bitterly cold instead of insanely cold. So appreciative of that. I'm doing well. It's been a crazy week. We'll talk about it in a bit, but man, I've just been so excited. The only thing that's kind of weird for me right now is when Netflix, when you're in that Netflix funk and you don't really have anything good to watch. Yeah. I'm sort of there right now. I don't really have a good series, nothing I'm really into. Every time I pull up Netflix, you go to that one line that's like, watch it again. And those are the only things I click on because things I've watched already.
I've been there, man. It's so hard to find something to watch on Netflix. Like, let's say you had 3 hours and you wanted to pick a movie. It'll take you an hour and a half to pick the movie.
Yeah, totally. It's unfair. And it's like, I want a series. I just want something that's like 1 or 2 episodes I can watch before bed or something like that. Like when Cobra Kai was still going or when the last season was still good, that was awesome. And Black Mirror is awesome and Homeland, all my favorite shows, but there aren't enough episodes. There's not enough seasons for these shows. So I'm just like in that funk where I'm looking for something.
Do you have
my wife Hulu? And no, I don't do Hulu.
Letterkenny.
But I do like Prime Video. Yeah, Letterkenny. I know we've been talking about that, right? Like Letterkenny, I should do that.
Like it's got 9 seasons. So I am so far behind and being like, hey, Letterkenny's funny. It's like, okay, grandpa. But 9 seasons. I just started the first season. So here's the funny part. My girlfriend does not like stupid comedy. So I watched like the first 2 episodes by myself and I'm telling her about it. I'm like, it's so funny, but you would absolutely hate it. She's like, well, I'll watch an episode. So I threw the first episode on with her and she's dying, right? Because it's Canadian, right? And but it feels very American South as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, and she's grown up in the South. So she like got a bunch of the jokes and stuff, even though it was Canadian. And just the main guy is so funny. Like all the characters are great, but the main guy is so funny. Like we're quoting it all the time. She's super into it. Like I'm upset when we don't hang out because I want to watch more. Like I'm almost thinking of watching ahead and then being like, let's go back and watch. Right. It's so funny, dude. You gotta watch it. It's your people.
I know. It is East Coast Canada, which is very, very funny stuff. The Trailer Park Boys, another show from that sort of part of the country. Very, very funny. I'll give you a piece of advice. I mean, obviously, this. Don't watch ahead because my wife doesn't like it when I do that. If I watch an episode of a show and she's not with me and it's a show we're into, I'm like, that's bad news. So don't do that. So
there's so many things I'm going to like work into my vernacular. Like I'm going to say pitter patter. He always says pitter patter, pitter patter. Let's get at her. There's so many. So
you'll be speaking Canadian in no time.
Yeah. Right. And then if I smoked, I'd have to call it a dart.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? Haya calls them darts. He always has done that. So it's weird because being friends with Haya, like some of the stuff in Letterkenny, I understood just from talking to Haya.
That's funny. It's like translation. Anyway, so that's what's going on with me, man. How are you?
Good, man. Good. Like you said, really big news this week. Super a lot of work we got to put in this week. I'm excited for that. Working hard at the job, taking care of the daughter. I mean, life's good, right? You can't complain too much. I already did that last week and nobody wants to hear any more of that. So all positives this week.
1 week per month we are allowed to complain. That's it. Only a little bit.
People can't see me on camera, but I'm smiling with 2 thumbs up. So let's So let's talk. We have to give a huge shout out. Theric, you brought up our adventuring party that's going to adventure with us through the rewind every week. And you guys will see we have a big group this week. So let me go ahead and announce that group. You'll see in the corner there, we have CaffeineInjected. He's a Halfling Ranger. We have Crow Singing. She is a Halfling Druid. We have Sparoh. She is an elf druid, and Bountycode, a human paladin. Those two, they're like permanent group leads, right? Like they're like officers of the group, Sparoh and Bounty. But we also got Moxys. I don't know how his name is said because it's XYS. It's almost probably Moxys. And he says it in the videos, so I should just go watch the videos before I put myself in this spot. But
Just go Mox. Just Mox.
Yeah, it's Moxie. That's what I would call him anyway. But Mox is a gnome enchanter. We have Hady Kamar, which is a halfling bard. I don't know if that was male or female. I think I put a male up on the screen, so sorry if I'm wrong. We Smoke Bitcoins. He didn't provide a class or race last week. So because he's all about Bitcoins, like since we've known him, he is Bitcoin king, right?
Every time.
So you brought this up. You said, why not a gnome summoner? It's made of nothing. Like a gnome is made of nothing. And he summons things out of thin air, just like Bitcoins, right? It's like this fake currency. But I do want to give a huge shout out to Bitcoins. You know, he's been around for a while. He's followed us almost since the first episode. And he had a really huge donation to the show. And I just want to really say thank you for that. That was awesome. And of course, to round out our group was Bobo, the Dwarf Cleric. So exciting stuff there, ready to venture on with our party. Thank you to everybody who donated to the cause of Pantheon Plus last week. We promise it'll be put to use to make our shows better, to make the website better, and to do some giveaways, right? And that should be a good segue for you, right?
Yeah, that's a good segue because we are actually doing a giveaway this week. So you may have seen it on Twitter or wherever we announced it, but we're giving away a legate pledge. I think I said that right. Legate pledge. Legate. I don't know. Anyway, it's a $100 one. It was donated to the show by community member Vindini and our warden in EQ2 who was healing us and saving our life. Anyway, so he donated a pledge, and what you get with this pledge is a beta testing access, support form access, digital copy of the game, early name reservation, early character creation prior to launch. You get a game title, you get two of them actually, Pantheon Explorer and Legate, and you get a nameplate.
Legate. I'm pretty sure it's Legate.
Are you really? Okay.
Well, I don't know.
Chat, let us know. I don't trust your pronunciation on things.
Well, that's true. Anyway. It's probably not Legate now that you say that.
Anyway, you also get an additional character slot, you get a tunic, and you get the bag. So with this pledge. So we're going to give that away during the show here. And good luck to everybody who's here. And during the premiere, during the chat, I will tell you how to go about entering your name in the draw. And then we'll, at the end of the show, we'll pull a name out of the hat and give our congrats to somebody for cashing in on a free pledge. So thanks again to Vindini. Very, very generous of you to donate to that show. I really want to say thank you to that. And with that, are you ready to get going here?
Yeah, we have great community members, and that's an amazing thing that he's doing on the show here for the rest of the community. So huge thank you there. But pitter patter, let's get at her.
Let's do it.
This week in Visionary Realms news and notes.
All right. VR news and notes. Typically, we read through Twitter what's going on, and if there's a developer stream or a VIP roundtable or newsletter, something comes out, we cover that too. So before we get to Twitter, we actually have something extraordinary to cover. And if you haven't heard this yet, I don't know how, but VR has granted Basgrim, Nathan Napalm, Theric, and myself the ability to play through the evaluation build, which we previously had seen played by Co-Carnage. Now, without knowing any of the real details, it's been updated. I know that. And they've tuned it up quite a bit since we've seen it with Co. So we may see some different pieces, or maybe it's just cleaned up a little bit. However, I do know that we're going to see it be a much more difficult challenge because Japa is going to basically, Japa and I'm imagining Sacred want to give us a little bit more of a challenge to see how we handle more difficult fights and things like that than you saw with Co. So our party is going to consist of the following to get you guys set up for this. Nathan will be playing the Dire Lord because he usually plays a Paladin tank. So he's sticking to the tank role, but a little bit different on the realm of good and evil. We have Basgrim, who's going to be playing a Shaman healer. And that's because Basgrim typically is going to play, I believe, a Dwarven Cleric. He's kind of between Dwarven Cleric and Dwarven Paladin, but probably ends up playing a Cleric, I'm going to guess. Yeah. Theric, you're going to reprise your role as the Wizard, which is pretty exciting. I know you didn't dislike the Wizard. You know, it's not a Ranger. It's not something you'd normally play, but you're going to reprise that role, which will be really cool. And we'll get into that in a second. I'm going to play the Rogue. And then we're going to have Ronick in our group who's going to play a shaman as well to do backup healing, but maybe do a little more damage and debuffing as well, which is pretty cool. So we'll see the shaman play a little different from Ronick than we will from Basgrim. Now, I don't know if Joppa is going to join into the group once we get into the gameplay stuff, but let's talk a little bit about what this is going to look like so people can get excited about this stream.
Right.
So Tuesday night, we are actually going to pre-record everything you're going to see on Thursday. Each one of us, so Nathan, Basgrim, Theric, and myself, will each have our own 3-hour sessions to record and play through. So what you're going to see on the developer stream is the last hour of the stream. And that is really going to be, all the group play that you're going to see from Ronick's perspective. He's going to record it, put it together. If he has to edit anything, he will. So what you'll see on the dev stream is all of us coming together to kind of tackle the difficult group part, hopefully get to the boss and hopefully take it down. So the big news there, though, is that we each are going to record 3 hours of gameplay. So after the developer stream, this means that you're not only going to get to see the group play section from 4 different perspectives, actually 5, right? You're going to see Ronick, Nathan, Basgrim, Theric, and myself after the fact. But you also get to see our individual play at the beginning of it, where we're sort of going through the solo and the story and learning our classes and getting our gear and crafting or whatever it is we end up doing. You'll kind of see that individually released after the fact. And we are going to try to sort of put this out in a way that won't overlap and drive everybody crazy. I think my idea, Theric, I think Basgrim's going to put his out, like his full play session out on YouTube. It's not solidified, but that's kind of what he's talking about doing the next day. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of maybe going on Twitch and doing a live stream where I show sitting there for 3 hours, like a 3-hour live stream, show the footage, interact with the community, answer questions, and just talk about sections of the video and stuff like that. I think that might be a lot of fun. And then, but I don't know how everybody's going to do it. Everybody's probably going to do it a little differently. So, but you guys are going to basically
comes down to like how you want to present it, how you feel the footage you gathered and what you actually did during the time is, how it sort of best presents. And I think if we all do it maybe a little differently, that's not a bad thing either, right? Like you do a Twitch stream with live reaction and commentary, Basgrim puts it out as a series of YouTube, just the different presentations I think would be a good idea.
Yeah. And the funny part is there's a couple of people in our guild, once they found out about this, like, Minus, will you please just craft for 3 hours? Like just shock everybody and just sit there crafting for 3 hours. I just laughed so hard. So there's this bet going on the over under of how much crafting I do in the video, which probably won't be too much.
Can we take negative numbers on that? Because I'll take the under of whatever anybody taking.
So what is negative? If like I come across meeting you in the demo and you give me something, is that negative? If I don't actually craft, but I get a crafted item from you, that would be like the negative.
No, it's if you go into that area and you smash all the crafting equipment, that's the negative on crafting.
But yeah, so I mean, there's going to be a lot of content here, guys. Getting to see all these different perspectives, not only just the footage, but what the breakdown videos are going to look like. I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy. Obviously, you can tell I'm pretty excited. I hope by my voice you can tell how amped up I am for this, and I think there's going to be something pretty special here. Now, so I'm going to talk a little bit, and Theric, I'm going to give you some time to talk about what your goals are going to be here. So recently I got into a debate with someone. I can't remember who it is, or I'd give them credit. I apologize. But they were talking about how, like, if you don't take an enchanter and there's no bard, it's going to be a really bad deal. And I'm not trying to like say they were wrong, but because I kind of agree that the bard coming in would be pretty important to have 2 of the support classes instead of just 1. But what I was saying is like, well, I think the rogue can kind of take one of those spots. And it was like, no, I would never take a rogue, this and that. Well, we don't have an enchanter in our group. So I am going to play a rogue, and I am going to do everything in my power to use my mastery points and my loadout with my limited action set to basically be like a full-on support rogue. Now I'll have a couple attacks to attack, like when we're fighting solo mobs and doing that. So I'm probably not going to be like a DPS machine, but I truly believe the rogue's utility is what makes this rogue the best rogue I've ever played. And I'm not joking. I'm not saying that like a white knight. We're playing a lot of different games right now, Theric, and this rogue that I have played, even in this early iteration, the utility of it is incredible. And I really hope that we don't lose utility, Theric, because maybe our DPS isn't where it needs to be, because the utility is so fun. It's so fun.
Well, and the thing is too, is that it opens up makes more important other roles too, right? So I'm playing a DPS class. If you're taking on a control predominant role, it makes my DPS all that much more important, right? And so I think I like that kind of pressure. I like that kind of, I want that to be the case where I really need to know what I'm doing because you're doing something that is very nuanced, right? I think that's an interesting way of going about it.
Right. And I can't really talk about this because it's under NDA. So I'm going to talk very loosely about this, but I've gotten to play the rogue a little more than you guys have seen. Obviously, everyone knows I'm a tester. So I've gotten to play the rogue in a couple situations where I took the lead of lead scout and planning and polling. And I don't want to say that I fully decked myself out to support, but I've been in a role where it's effective. And there's a few things I didn't take that if I did take, I think it would be even more effective. So I'm very, very excited to really go all out with this and spend some time. So when you guys watch my solo footage, you're probably going to see me really looking through my abilities and trying to build this support style scout, polling, etc. Build that I think is going to be really cool. And, knock on wood, I hope I don't fall flat on my face doing this, but I think it's going to be neat. So,
you know what it just dawned on me that we need to do actually, because this is the second time where you're going to be playing a rogue. I'm playing a wizard. Mm-hmm. And we always show the video, during the rewind here of our adventure and you're in that role. And we always show that part where I follow you into the cave behind you where you're stealth. I'm not stealth. I think we need to do a 2.0, don't we? We need to replay this scenario in a different setting. No, you don't.
No, Cleric, you just stay back. You're a wizard. You need to be, while I may venture ahead, you need to be the furthest in the back. That's your role.
Is that how it works? Okay.
That's how it works.
I got it. I'm going to make a note of that. Hold on.
Yeah. So, I know that you're trying to think ranger and, you got to play EQ2 and you had stealth and you got all fancy. But, as a ranger, I know sometimes you'll get up in melee, but as a wizard, stay back. Now, honestly, like jokes aside, getting into that, I think this is going to be really exciting for everybody. I really do. And Theric, this leads me to you, and I want to give you some time to talk to. So there's a couple of things I'm really excited about for you, and I want you to expand on it. But number one, I'm just nervous if you even getting to the group content with all the lore you're going to be able to consume and go into and talk about. But let's be honest, there's something really important here. So we've seen VR do a shaman stream. We've seen VR do a Dire Lord stream, and then we had the opportunity to do the Rogue stream. And now you'll be the first person playing a wizard in open, being able to open all the spells, look over all the spells, show the gameplay. You're going to be the first person to be able to really do that wizard reveal, much like we did the Rogue before. So how are you feeling about this whole thing and the opportunity you have? I'm so happy you're here with me, my man. Like my co-pilot being with me is awesome. I mean, we've never got to play Pantheon with Nathan or Baz. I mean, this is a monumental day of what the future may look like, right? So let me put it over to you. How are you feeling about all this?
Well, you know what? When I first learned of it and I was sort of like processing it a little bit, I had a little bit of a anxiety moment because I'm like, oh my gosh, because I don't play wizards in other MMOs. I really have never mained a wizard. Don't even think I had many alts as a wizard, but that's okay, because the more I thought about it as being like a huge responsibility. And I tend to, I tend to do well when I get responsibility placed upon me like that. So I'm using that as fuel to do the best job I can. I really am going to work my ass off to get this class showcased for the people out there, for all the people who are going to main a wizard, right? Because this is like if somebody else was playing a ranger, what would I want them to do? I'm looking at it from that perspective. So I'm really going to dig into the spells, the masteries, all the, the ability points, the stats. I'm going to focus on how the focus resource that they have works. How does it feel? How do you use it and how does it feel? I mean, people can read on the website what the wizard does, but you don't know until you see it. So I'm going to try and
the
showcase.
Website only lists a few abilities. I mean, you're going to show way more abilities off for the first time in your gameplay. Like if you just highlight your spells.
Yeah. I mean, I want to showcase the whole suite of what it means to be a wizard. I want to show the animations, right? I want people just to see, what the spellcasting animations look like. And again, we've seen that. We've seen, the VR streams they've done where Ronix played the wizard a couple times and that kind of thing. But
but we haven't seen any depth on wizard. If I'm going to be honest, I bet the wizard fans out there really are craving more.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just going to try and go into with the mindset of, what would I want to see? So I'm going to work really hard for it. I'm glad I get to wear a robe because I look pretty cool in the robe that they put on Twitter as the promo pic there. So I'll be playing a human, because that's the race that shows the robe right now. So I get to see that. The other thing I'm going to do too, and this ties into what I'm going to talk about in a second with the lore, is that when we saw co-play, all the NPCs reacted to him as a rogue, right? So we're going to see different reactions, and I'm interested in how they react to me as a wizard. Now, it might not be huge differences. It might just be subtle differences, which is fine. But there's been hints that, the classy play, and we've seen that in other streams, the classy play impacts the dialogue and what the NPCs say to you, that kind of thing. So taking that and then tying it into the lore side of things. So I do need to be careful about not going overboard with the lore stuff, because there are some things that Co didn't complete in his playthrough. We didn't see the full book of the Availoth. We didn't learn fully about some of the notes in Deogracius' study there on the spiders and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to follow up on a few of those things. I'm not going to do it all over again. Obviously, I don't want to just repeat what Co did. I'm not going to be like, that's that. There would be no point in doing that. But there are some things to follow up on.
It's funny too, because I know how much you've studied what you need to show so that you can talk about it versus what he showed. So
exactly. Yeah. And that's what I've been doing actually is doing some studying, because I want to just be able to have a conversation sort of with the lore in the moment and say, okay, this references this. This is something that this other piece of lore connects to. So I kind of think it's important to kind of do that. And I don't want to get too granular on it either. I'm going to try and stay as big picture, because I know not everybody knows it as well as I do. And I don't want to bore everybody with minor details and keep it a sort of the forest for the trees sort of thing. I want to look for new perception pings, because I know Co didn't get them all, obviously. There's some conversations to take a different angle in. The first one, the very beginning, he didn't ask about the dark traders. And that's something I want to follow up on. That's the first guy that he runs into in the fortress there. And Co didn't know a lot of it. Like he's not a lore guy, or he is a lore guy, but he doesn't know the lore in the way that I do. So he wouldn't have been able to sort of
tie it together.
Tie it together. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So that's what I'm kind of doing. I'm kind of looking at it as I'm going to try and split my time as evenly as I can between doing lore stuff and then going in and doing class stuff. And I want to explore, and I want to look around and see what's going on, and I want to hang out with you guys. And the thing is, like you said, this is the first time we get to play together, all four of us, and that's awesome. And they're like you said, they're tuning the difficulty up. The most important thing that we can do though is to have fun. Yeah. I don't know, Minus, if you remember, I'm sure you do, but in a Rewind episode a little while ago when we were talking about the evaluation build, my critique, the one thing I said was that I don't think that it showed off Pantheon's main selling point, which is fun social gameplay. Mm. And that's my mindset.
One person playing versus, we're going to have four, right? And it's funny because you can never really count the devs. It's just, for whatever reason, poor guys, like even if they're having fun, it doesn't matter, right? Because they're the devs. So having four content creators step into this world with a little bit of experience playing, not a ton. Mm-hmm. And luckily me, you and Nathan have kind of really become accustomed to each other with MMO classes 101, but we've never played with, I don't think I've ever played any game with Baz.
We did play EverQuest for your birthday. Yeah. Last year. Remember we went to, we played a little old EQ with him, but
that's right.
Yeah. Just, you took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say these classes 101 videos that we've been doing, they've really showed off what I'm talking about, because we have such a good time when we play together. And if you watch Nathan Napalm's channel, he puts out just
fun.
Oh, they're so fun. The videos of us just having our study session, and he edits them and does some, funny stuff with them. Everybody should check that out, because if you want to know what it feels like to have a fun group, and have a good group dynamic.
That's the core of MMORPGs, man. That fun.
That's what it is.
We just play. And like we joke so much, and funny, hilarious things come up. It's so natural, right? Like it's like that video he put together of me like falling off the cliff.
Oh my God. I was crying, I was literally crying. Even like everything about that was just so funny.
Follow the rogue.
Yeah, follow the rogue. And then you're like laying on the ground. You're like, Nathan, just touch me, raise me. Oh man. That guy's he's got a gift for humor. But the point is that in our experience here coming up, I want to show that off, and I'm not going to force it. Obviously, but we have a good rapport, and we're going to have a good time. That's the key, and I think that's going to sell. What this evaluation build can really do. It's going to really, hopefully, in my mind, show off the strengths of it. So. Anyway, yeah, that's my take on this whole thing, and I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, obviously. The one thing I really want to do is I want to sneak into the storehouse where that guard is, where he lets you take some stuff. I want to sneak in and do it without getting permission. That's exactly a big goal of mine. So
the other thing you got to do too is do more sneaking up on conversations. Right, there's that one. You got to do that, man.
It's gonna be a good time. We're gonna be roguing it up, guys. I may die to guards for stealing, but hey, that's a good time. That's a good time. All right, so let's move on, because this is congratulations. We've now have another long episode. So
that's okay.
But I mean, how do we not spend time talking about this? It's going to be awesome. And, hit us up in the Discord for Pantheon.plus or Pantheon Plus. Just hit us up in the Discord. The links are down below if you're not already in there. But hit us up with, what do you want to see us do? Like, especially if Wizard is your class or Rogue is your class. Like, Basgrim, Nathan, myself, Derek, we're all in there. So hit us up. Like, what do you want to see from that build, or what were you curious about that we can kind of maybe uncover for you, which would be fun. So let's get the community involved a little bit, right?
Yeah. Wizard. That's a great point. If you're a wizard, if you're planning on maining a wizard, let me know. I'll do my best to show what you're looking for.
Awesome. So let's get into the Twitter debates here. We are already almost a half hour in, Derek.
Give me a long one. That's all right.
So community debate, what are the toughest challenges you face when starting a new MMORPG? So let's start with Steven Adams. He says, I'm a research nut. Typically, I know all there is to know about an MMO right before it launches, which makes race and class decisions very difficult for me. Usually I end up liking half the race class choices, and I can't decide what my first pick is, and I don't like re-rolling. And knowing I won't be able to play as much as I'd like to right at the launch. For example, when ESO came out, a friend and I took 2 days off of work and played in my house for 24 hours straight, LOL. I'm planning to do something similar, however, still when Pantheon releases. So, same. The Volley Pantheon says, been fighting the urge and following the flock. So that's one of his issues where he starts a game following everybody and constantly racing, right? He says, been guilty in the past of trying to keep up with peers instead of just playing at my own pace and enjoying the journey. That's
a really good point.
It's a great point. And Theric, I'm telling you right now, you've played with me. We've played multiple MMOs. You've played some Pantheon with me. I don't think I can do it.
I have faith in you.
I want to be able to play at my own pace, but my pace is apparently pretty fast from what we've seen.
But you got to be true to yourself. You got to be true to yourself, and if that's what brings you joy, that's what brings you, just do it. Don't think too much about it. But I'm the opposite. I'm slow. I take things real slow. And I'm going to be dragging you. That's the funny part. That's true. I'm going to have you by the hand. Theric, let's go. I need you. It's like a Disney World with the parent and the kids. Like, come on, let's go, Dad. Let's go. I'm like, no, we have to be at the line. Lucille says, finding a new guild to start my new life with. Fortunately, I've already found that group, and we have at least a few years we're going to be able to get to know each other. Hashtag Pantheon Plus. So Lucille, awesome. I had to get that in there. That was an awesome one. Yeah, nice. Guildy. JJ, who has now taken his last name off of Twitter for us. Yep. No more banging his head on the desk. Nope. JJ says, kind of an outside the box answer, but overcoming my insecurities and wondering if I'm actually good enough to group with others to take on new, never before seen content. Always worry about my skill level and if I'll be useful to a group. That's, I've met a lot of people. I'm not that way. But I've met a lot of people that way come on, let's go. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Right. So it's at least 50% of the people who play MMOs feel that way, I would say, if not more, because it's just so common. It's just social anxiety, and everybody's got it to some extent. More or less. Yeah. Kath Clark says, this sounds really mundane after reading all these excellent replies, but my biggest bugbear, I love that word, bugbear, when I start a new game is to get enough bags of a decent size. I'm sorry to be so lame. No, Kath, you are 100%.
listen, when you start an MMORPG, and we even saw this at EverQuest too, when who was it who just gave us big bags? We're like, oh, this is the best.
Yeah, that's right. When was that?
Oh,
it was
man.
Vandini, I think, again.
Yeah, I'm telling you, getting a big bag, it's life changing. So no, that's not a lame answer. That's a great answer, Kath. So.
Agreed.
Jorgen said, similar to Lucille said, finding a guild. I'm an introvert. I'm not very social. So you'll find one. Trust me, this game is going to require people to group, require people to reach out, and you'll find one. I definitely think so. Zendros says, the toughest challenge I face when playing a new MMO is not comparing it to every other MMO that came before it. I start looking at what other MMOs do better than the new MMO instead of just taking what the new MMO does well. That's a great
super good point. Yeah.
How much does that hurt us as gamers when we don't just take in what a game is, instead we're comparing it. I think as humans these days, everything is like comparing, right?
Yeah.
So
it's like trying to make a painting on a canvas that already has a painting on it. It's like instead of having a blank canvas, you don't create on the blank canvas, you're trying to paint over something else. It's like it's so hard. It makes life so much more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. We just got to get that primer out. Just get that primer out and start going over, right?
Give it a whitewash. Yeah, exactly.
Now, Boss Game Stream replied to that. And I took this reply because I liked it. It said, this is probably true for most. It's an underlying concern that consumers only passively or passive aggressively deal with new games. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that is a very common thing right now.
Yeah, we do that a little bit.
Yeah. Archbishop says, setting up my UI and adjusting chat, window settings, get a flow and feel that I'm vaguely accustomed to it. I understand a game is going to have its own UI design, but I want to be able to customize and move myself. Archbishop, I love you. We are one of the same. Holy cow, is getting the UI set up and my keybind set up. Number one, Theric. And when you guys watch my footage, that's exactly what you're going to see right off the bat is me getting my keybind set up, getting my UI set up. Yep. 100%.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not too hard to do. I mean, that's the thing, right? You want to make that easy.
Dude, there's things I need. I cannot live without my action bars being at the feet of my character. My group bar has to be in a certain place. Certain abilities have to be certain numbers. Like if I have a movement ability, it has to be in a certain spot. Like that's how attuned I am to how I play MMORPGs. Like movement abilities need to be here. Attacks need to be in rotation order and importance and this through this. Like I'm insane about my keybinds and stuff. So you guys will get a glimpse of that when we record our footage, I'm sure. So let's see here. So yeah, Archbishop, that's a good one. Breakout says, with every MMO I've played, my biggest problem has always been sticking with a character. I'll make a character see somebody do something really cool, and then I want to do the same. Oh my God, Theric. Yeah. And he says, by the time it's said and done, he has a level 10 of every class and no idea what to do. Theric, that is me. Like, so I've been on this crusade, right? I'm a rogue. I got a picture of me as a rogue. I've embraced the rogue. I'm playing the rogue. Theric, this is me. You have to protect me because I can't do it on my own. If I ever see like, oh my God, did you see what that enchanter did? Just like, no, stop looking, Minus. Go play your rogue.
Focus, man. Focus.
That is the story of my EQ career. I played a wizard. So I played a couple things first, but the main first for me was a wizard. And then I saw a monk and I saw how fast they were hitting. And I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. Right. So I made a monk. And then I saw a ranger doing yes, I saw a ranger. Yes. And they were doing the endless quiver thing. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And I made a ranger. So it's, I do have that problem. I think that this journey through Pantheon has helped me maybe quell that to where I'm playing a rogue in all these games. I'm telling you, this MMORPG class is what I want. If you guys aren't watching it, you should watch it because it's fun. But even if you don't, it's so therapeutic for me because I'm going through all these games playing a rogue. I'm defining myself to when I play Pantheon, it's all I want to play. It'll be the first MMORPG I ever play where I have one class that I'm going to play. I'm not going to make a ton of alts. I'm going to have a main. I'm going to stick with it.
That's a reputable goal. I agree. I'm the same way. I don't really suffer from that too badly. I get it a little bit, but I'm pretty good at focusing on my main character.
Dude, in World of Warcraft, I had every tank fully raid gear at every tier, so I could play whatever tank was needed.
Yeah, you're like the dog, right? Squirrel. Like every time you see a squirrel, you got to chase it, right?
Oh, that's definitely me. All right, 2 more. We got Streak. He says the toughest challenge he usually faces are bottlenecks. Everybody hitting the newbie zone at once. A bunch of us just standing around or fighting within the community, which is opposite of what these games are supposed to strive for. Having no instances isn't always the best path, he says. Ooh, tied it into an interesting debate around instances. You remember those, right? Like, hey, go kill 10 of this. There's 7 million people killing everyone that pops up.
Yeah. Hey, man, if Pantheon's got 7 million people, I'll be pretty happy no matter what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, VR will be pretty happy too.
Yeah, there you go.
And finally, Patrick Johnson says, I only get an hour or 2 to play a day if I'm lucky. But when I do get into a game, it's what I play. Falling behind my group and having to find new people can be a problem. I spend 10 to 20 minutes finding a group, then I play for the remainder. More of me is an issue than anything. So more of a me issue, he says, than anything. So.
Right. Yeah. That's sort of a lot of problems sort of in one little package there. But I hear what he's saying. Definitely. It's not.
Yeah. Theric, you've said a few times like, well, I can't stay up late and I'm not going to be able to play a ton. Don't worry. I'm going to be dragging Theric in, guys. His wife is going to, anytime my name comes up, his wife is going to do like a mean face at him.
That already happens. We're already there, man. No, just kidding.
So good. It will be. No,
probably.
Minus is texting me. You're gonna have to do the face to her. Like, Minus is texting me. He needs me to log on, and you give her the like. What do you think?
That's right. That's right.
Don't hate me, hate Minus. It's for the brand.
Not my fault. Not my fault.
We're building the brand. Oh,
that's right.
Good. All right, so let's jump into the next topic here because we're almost all the way through what a show would be. No, I'm kidding. 36 minutes in with one more topic to talk about here and we get into the community. How rich do you want to be? Such a weird question. You know what's funny though, Theric? Some of the most weird questions Kilson puts out there we have the most fun with on the show. Did you realize that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. And I think that's why he does it.
Maybe. Oh, is it us? Are we that powerful? Okay.
Yes.
Bascom says, of course, there should be coin sinks to keep inflation in check. That's a lot easier than constantly adjusting merchant prices to account for inflation, he says. If neither of those things happen, it's just a matter of time until coin becomes almost meaningless. He didn't even answer the question, Theric. He didn't even talk about if he wanted to be rich or not.
Yeah, very professional answer.
Yeah, you got very professional. We're economist Bascom. But don't worry, we have Nathan next, and he says... I like being poor and barely scraping by enough together to get my next upgrade, or saving up a huge ransom and then blowing it all immediately on something I've been chasing for a long time. It feels so good, man. Now this next one I couldn't not include.
Yeah, we
haven't heard from him for a while. I will openly tell the whole world right now that we've had our problems. But BoomTap put out from Standing in Fire, they aren't around anymore. But Standing in Fire, BoomTap put out an amazing response, and he said, "I still own a Dell Inspiron computer."
And that's the running joke on the show, right? Like if you haven't listened to the Standing in Fire podcast that they used to do, that was the running joke, is that the Dell Inspiron was on fire that week, or something was going on with the Dell that wasn't allowing the show to get made. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
He like found this computer like near a dumpster or something and put some RAM in it. And that's how they ran their show. And it would always just go to hell. So Dell Inspiron. I had to include it. Boom. I hope you're doing well, buddy. It's been a while. Libwick says, I've always liked playing the auction house. It's cool to have certain segment of nice items that a bunch of gold can buy, like a Bard Mask or Legs from Kale, but I could never afford them. But I always thought they were cool. Crowblade may be another, though not as cool. I never play the market. I had one moment where I sold a bunch of items, but I don't want to say I played the market. I've never had enough. You have to have a lot of money to play the market. I've never had a lot of money. So
yeah, that's right. You do. You need that initial investment into the market to make money. You got to spend money to make money. If you don't have money to spend, you're never making any. So yeah.
Yeah. So which I'm not going to pronounce right. I don't think I'm ever going to get her name right, but Maya.
There you go. You got it. Very good.
Oh, I'll never do it again. Done. I would love to say I'd like some coin, but let's face it, I'm near broke in every game I play. Good stuff. Drax says, working the market makes me rich. Theric, write that down. That's our go-to. That's our sugar daddy.
It's sugar daddy. That's right.
Yep. Uso Gaming says, I want gold to seem important. Current WoW's inflation is so bad that having a few million gold seems like chump change. However, in WoW Classic, having a few thousand, it felt impressive. Personally, I plan on doing a lot of exploring, so I may be gold or EXP rich. Exploring doesn't get you money. Sorry, I was saying you're gonna be broke.
XP rich. That's a good way of looking at it.
It'll be XP rich, yeah. Manuel Garcia says, that's a good question. As I've said before in a previous tweet, I suck at making money in game. High five, Manuel. I would love to make more money and invest on player item trades when it's good for my game tune and development. Yeah, I'm broke all the time. Chobin Hood says, this ready? Remember how we always say some of our people are such good community members? Chobin Hood is a great community member. He says, rich in friendship, but while I generally don't care about money, could go copperless the entire game and not bat an eye. I do intend to get into crafting early on, and I expect it to be an expensive profession. As long as I have enough to sustain my craft, I'll be happy. He's probably going to make a lot of money. That's my guess.
Yeah, probably.
I'm not crafting. Nathaniel James says, I want to afford what I need and then have a little extra for the things I want. Since I can't invest real money into the game the way I do in real life, there is a little point to hoarding a virtual currency. My hope is that there are reasonable gold sinks that balance out the economy. So there you go.
somewhere Bitcoins is smashing his head against the desk right now. It's like, what virtual currency? That's my whole business.
Totally. So what do you think, Theric? I mean, I responded to this. I just said, let's not kid anybody. I'm broke all the time. So that's it. Listen, I'm not going to have any money. Theric, I'm going to be asking you for money. Apparently Drax, our sugar daddy, plus guild. Sorry, that'll be the one annoying thing about me. Hey, does anybody have enough money for an enchantment? Or can anybody upgrade my dagger? Yeah, but I will repay you with the most epic of dungeon running and getting gear drops. That's what I'll pay you.
Yeah. But you loot them first and then distribute them. And I think that's
how it works, right? No.
I see. Okay.
That's only in old MMORPGs. In current ones, I'm very fruitful. So good.
Yeah, good. I mean, here's the thing for me with this is just the saying more money, more problems, right? I kind of believe that. I tend to think when you hit it big in an MMO, like if you get that super rare drop and it's worth whatever, you're like the superstar all of a sudden. I think that's what it would feel like to win the lottery, which is like a good thing in the moment. But then again, what happens next, right? Then you got every third cousin, you got that elementary school acquaintance, you got some guy you knew 20 years ago for 5 minutes coming out of the woodwork.
Rogue. Yeah,
to be your best friend, right? All of a sudden you're like the most popular person.
Just remember, I was your best friend before we had any currency to gain.
Yeah.
OG.
Yeah. And then those rogues, they cozy up to you all nice. Like they've, like they're your best friend all of a sudden and that kind of thing. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I don't need a lot of money. I think that would kind of suck, but I'll stick in my little cozy ranger shack in the woods and live a simple life. I think that's where I land with this one.
Hold on, I'm crossing you off my list and adding Drac. So, all right, Drac, do you want to host an episode of the Rewind? No, I'm kidding.
I just want to be on Drac's list. I don't care about your list. I'll be on Drac's list.
Sugar Daddy Drac.
That's right.
All right, yeah. So that's it for VR news and notes.
When the Pantheon community speaks, we listen. So let's dig into the forums and fan projects to see what the discussion's all about. All right. So this week for our community discussion, there was a really good article written on our Pantheon.plus site by community member Turkish. And the name of the article is That Old Feeling. Now, I put this out there earlier in the week on Twitter. I asked people to read it and go reply. And I got a couple of replies and asked people to go and check out the article and leave a comment there as well. So we did get a few. So we're going to talk about that. And it's basically based on, we were talking about our classes videos earlier and playing EverQuest 2. The last place we did in EverQuest 2 was Nectarpost Castle. And in watching the play session that we had, Turkish had several insights into how dungeons, basically how they were conceived and designed in current MMOs, as opposed to what we saw of Nectarpost Castle, which is an older, like from EverQuest 2, again, more than 10 years old. So I'm not going to read the entire article, but I'm going to point out a couple really important lines. And the first one is, he said, does the dungeon feel like it exists only for the player, or does it feel like a real place? Goes on to say, as the team made their way through the winding and seemingly haphazard dungeon, they often became lost. They did the wrong thing. They went the wrong way. They found themselves returning to the beginning again and again, which actually, Minus, if you remember that part, it was quite funny. Nathan kept leading us back to the entrance lobby over and over again. Super funny. Anyway, and so they go on in the article to say the direction and the optimal path were unclear. And I like this line a lot. It says the castle itself was indifferent to their plight. It was there before them, and it would remain there after they had either given up or completed it. And he goes on to say that in so many dungeons, it feels like, there's just it's a loot and scoot experience designed for the player to move through a very linear path. And don't get me wrong, dungeons are fun, but again, another good point here, almost as if they're engineered to be fun. And they are. They're over-engineered is what the article is saying. Because you can, sometimes you only go a certain way, do things in a certain order, that kind of thing. They go on to say, look at Nectropa's castle. It didn't feel like it was tested. It didn't feel engineered for the optimal player path. It didn't really care if you got the loot that was in there. The lore was laid out. It wasn't in a cutscene, or some big long piece of exposition from an NPC. The reason the castle existed was not for us to have, not for our pleasure, but it was for its own mysterious reasons, right? Mm-hmm. And they were secret. We had to discover those. And then lastly, just sort of follows up by saying, because we live in a, and this is me speaking here, but, we live in a very streaming culture right now in gaming where everything needs to be watchable. Everything needs to be entertaining and that kind of thing. And watching this, probably wouldn't have made for good general viewing if from a current academic or current sort of design philosophy, but people really enjoyed watching this. And I think there were a lot of folks, including Turkish here. So he said that there's dead ends, there's do-overs, real-time problem solving that didn't involve maximizing your damage output. The place was made by developers before they worried about things like watchability, which I think is a really, really good point.
It's a really good point. Yep.
Yeah. So this got me thinking about, dungeon design process. And I put it out there on Twitter and Discord asking for the community to give some thoughts on this. Here's a few of the responses from Twitter. Deuterino on Twitter said, it comes down to predictability. The less predictable, the more fun dungeons become. If players know exactly where to go for a chance at specific gear, then it's just a loot slot machine. The mindset of socialization and exploration is also key. And I want to comment on that, Minus, and I'm curious of what you think about that, because he's talking about predictability. And when I hear predictability, it makes me think of procedural generation, right? That's become sort of the buzzword in a lot of different genres as well these days. It's like, if we make things procedurally generated, then nothing's the same twice. And I really don't care for that approach to things. I know what Deuterino is saying with regard to predictability, and it makes me think of Pantheon's disposition system, right? That's mobs, I know, not dungeon design necessarily, but it can make the things. Dungeon. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an important point there. What do you think about that? Do you agree with that?
Well, it's an interesting point, right? So that was the first time we played it. If we went in again, we wouldn't have the same problems, right? Like we discovered a lot. So, True. I think almost every dungeon, when you first go in, even if it's on rails, it's still, you don't know what kind of mobs you're fighting. You're not sure what you're going to encounter. So the first time in any dungeon is usually fun. It's just a matter of, can it be fun if you do it again?
Yes.
And I think that's the tricky part. And I think sometimes that linear path is still fun every time you do it. But I definitely, doing that last dungeon we did, it was really wide open. And again, we got lost. Like, you don't get lost in point A to point B dungeons. Getting lost is fun. There were times where we lost Drac. Nobody knew where Drac was. We couldn't find him. I can't remember the time that's happened in an MMO, at least a modern MMO. And that's fun to me. Drac just thinking of Drac being stuck somewhere and being rich and being like, Drac, I'll come get you, but it's going to cost you X amount of gold, so that would be fun to me. So
that's a great point. It's a great point. How the social dynamics lead to that less predictability, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen because everybody's doing, that you're playing with other people, real other people, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And I think the other aspect of predictability that Deuterino is talking about here comes down to spawns, and rare spawns, and what if something's up, what if something's not, and that kind of thing. So you never kind of know what you're going to get in a dungeon. The layout may be the same, but then you add in things like dispositions, spawn rates, and social dynamics, that kind of thing. So it gives it that. So it's a really good point. The other response was from Faymom, and Faymom said, I'm very challenged from a platformer standpoint, bad hand-eye coordination. Some of the best memories in dungeons are those platformer moments, like not falling in lava in Solus XIA from EverQuest, or falling to the bottom in Velkator's Labyrinth, also in EQ. My groups would always have that moment, is she going to make that jump? And if I wasn't always I wasn't always the only person having trouble. It's always a story when you fail to make that jump. So that's kind of interesting. It's like a different perspective on dungeon design, right? That vertical design. Mm-hmm. You don't always see it. I can't think of any sort of modern examples. Again, I don't play all the modern MMOs, so I don't know.
It's not super modern, but in WoW there was a dungeon called the Oculus.
Okay.
And you had to use drakes, and you had to fly on the drakes. And so some of the boss fights were in 3-dimensional form. It wasn't just you running around. You also had like the depth to work through. Miserable. I was so bad at that dungeon. It was so hard. And then there was a raid fight, Malagos, that you had to fight that way at the last phase. It was just crazy. It was the craziest thing to organize, because it was just adding another plane dimension was really crazy.
So when you think about a dungeon like that, now let me ask you, do you think that dungeon or those dungeons were designed from the perspective of what's cool, what is this dungeon, what's cool about this dungeon, and how can we emphasize that? Or was it more sort of from a, academic perspective approach of we need to think about our player experience? Which do you think that leaned more heavily towards one side or the other?
I don't know. I probably that it was cool. I mean, you're flying dragons around, fighting a giant dragon in that raid, and it's on a 3D plane, and he's shooting fire, and you have to move up and down and left and right and in and out. And at that point, there hasn't been much like that unless you were doing like an underwater fight, right? That's the extent of it. It's crazy. I mean, I don't even know. Because before this, I haven't thought of that fight in a long time, but it was a crazy fight at the time.
Yeah. This just really made me, again, nostalgic. I know we talked about it last week, but I am a nostalgic person, and old ideas resonate with me sometimes. And this article talking about Nectar Post, really what makes a castle cool, what makes it interesting and challenging, and working from that premise. I really love that idea. And then you've got the other aspect where things have gotten a little formulaic. It's not all bad. There's still some good dungeons out there, but I think about our Guild Wars 2 experience. Think about how linear those dungeons were. You had you had the choice of like a couple different objectives, but they were all very straight lined. And it felt very academic, where game design and creativity is not really in tandem working together, I would say. I feel like there's too much of that in recent MMOs and not enough of the old, here's a castle, it's you versus the castle, have at her, you know what I mean? Like, and let's just make it cool.
Let's get at her.
Let's get at her. Right on. Yeah. So I've sort of asked for your opinion as we've gone through this, and unless you have anything else to say, I'll get to the introductions.
The only thing I would add is environment is really important to me. Like when we were doing that dungeon, it was kind of like a creepy environment. I wanted to know what was going on with these daughters and the father, and it was weird. Like one that stands out to me. So one of the expansions for a while that wasn't very popular was BFA. But in BFA, there was a dungeon that people probably did 7 million times if they played BFA, which was Waycrest Manor. And Waycrest Manor was about like these witches in this haunted castle. It was like a haunted mansion. And you could do the boss fights in any order, which was kind of cool. So it was kind of like would open itself up. And then once you did all 3, it would open these locked basement doors to get into the basement to the final boss. It was just really cool because it was really creepy. It was environmental. There was kind of like a story to it. It reminded me of, and it's, it's not exact, but it reminded me of things like Unrest. Like the state of Unrest was so cool. Like it was so creepy. It was weird. There was a story going on in the background. There was the hedge mage. Like I like that environment of being in a dungeon is not supposed to be a happy place. So like being in a dungeon is a really cool thing to me. And I know sometimes dungeons are just another person's, living quarters or environment, but a true dungeon is creepy and you're scared and you're nervous. And I love that. So
yeah, I think what you said there, really good point you made there, was the story is going on in the background. Right. It's not like the article said, it's not being given to you directly through direct exposition, direct narrative in your face. Don't tell me the story. Let me see the story happening in the background. Let me hear little bits along the way of what's going on. I love that idea. I think that's so cool. So yeah, good stuff there. I really like that. So let's introduce some new members of the community as we do. First up this week was Apache. They said, "Hello, everyone. It's nice to finally and officially be a part of the community. I've been following the development for the past few years. Recently decided to jump in and pledge. Grew up playing EverQuest starting in 2000 around the time of Kunark released. And I think I have over 14 years entitled on my original EQ account." He says, "Burtox crew, where you at? Played on Povar for a while too. Really miss the amazing sense of community that's absent from our current generation of games, and it's my wish that Pantheon can bring that back for each and every one of us. Looking for a guild if anyone needs an extra player with way too much time on their hands. Not sure which class I'm going to main yet, but I plan to spend a lot of time during alpha and beta figuring that out. So welcome to Apache." And then Firewall said, "I've been playing MMOs since the early days of UO. Spent most of my time in EverQuest on Fen and Row and Bristlebane servers. And then AO, which is Anarchy Online, before playing World of Warcraft on and off. And from there, I moved to Vanguard and eventually ended up back in EQ2 with some stops along the way. For me, community is what makes or breaks a game. EQ had a great community. AO, for a game released in such a poor state, had one of my favorite communities, probably from the collective PTSD from the launch. Newer games just don't seem to have that community feel, and hopefully Pantheon brings it back." They said they like to play bard-like characters, or the fixer in AO, or whatever support character has a good run speed buff. In most cases, I tend to be navigationally challenged, managed to find cliffs and ledges all too frequently, and was banned from Kelvin by my guild in EverQuest for that very reason.
Oh man, Kelvin.
Can you imagine being banned? Your server's like, your guild just
that
don't
place
go
was hell. I fell off so many times.
Deadly. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to ask you a weird question here, and I want you to think about this. When I say the word scar, Minus, what's the first word that pops into your brain?
Cannibalism.
Okay. So it wasn't poetry.
No.
Because poetry is what we have for our fan project this week. Somebody, Ben and I, not just anybody, our fan fiction extraordinaire Ben and I wrote a poem called "The Dry and Weary Lands," and it's about the scar. He prefaces it by saying, "This goes out to those of you who aren't buying the keeper's views on the scar, but no, they're just misunderstood." So, I mean, with a premise like that, you have to go read it. I found it super evocative. It's a poem. It's obviously not long, but very, very enjoyable. So I like that Ben and I's branching out into other areas of types of writing too, because he's so talented. So go read it for yourself over on the fan fiction subforums at pantheonmmo.com. And that's it for this week's community discussions.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it gets here, I just yell, mail! We're getting sued. All right, so it's that time for the mailbox. Today we have 3 questions to go through. And let's get started because we're already eating up a lot of your time. The first one is from JJ. Again, no last name. What kind of epic weapon would you create for your class? And how would somebody obtain it? What do you think, Theric?
It's a good one. I think the lance is an unrepresented weapon in MMOs. I know I've talked about this before with my love of Dragonlance, but typically, and lances are used for jousting. I get that. But why can't they be like hand lances? And I know somebody in the chat or probably in the comments here is going to, cite some MMO where they had a really cool lance epic weapon. But just imagine like a huge warrior, like with a huge lance tied to her back, charging into battle and skewering like 5 enemies. And if it was like an epic weapon, what if like every time it skewered another mob, it increased its crit chance or something like that? I think you could really have some fun with that. And then you could have a cool name for it, which would be the shish kebab. So that was my whole idea, was just so I could have an epic weapon called the shish kebab. So there you go.
Yeah, for me, it'd be a set of daggers. Surprise!
Surprise!
Like one that is bleeding and one that has like poison dripping off of it. Like some kind of like cool names, like a group, like, blah and blah. Like, I don't know. I didn't come up with cool names.
In EverQuest too, there's a quest for daggers called Scorn and Shame. They're matching daggers. Yeah. They're cool.
Yeah, I would call one of them like Cash Shop and the other one like Instance. So you'd get like Cash Shop and Instance in your hand, right? And then just start mowing down noobs crying about cash. No, I'm just kidding. But no, like a bleeding dagger and a poison dagger, and one's like bleeding out red, one's dripping green poison. How do I get it? I don't care. I'm going to get it if it exists. It'd probably be through some kind of collect pieces from all these dungeons and turn them into a quest giver, and then boom, here you go. And they're rare and it's sweet.
That sounds good. I can do that. Nice. Okay, I'll read the next question.
Okay, good.
This is from Chobin. They said, how intelligent should pets be allowed to be? Should they be simpler with only commands like attack, stop, guard, or should some sort of pet scripting be possible? So, for example, like attack percent, targeting the tank or the tank's target, putting a percentage on if the wizard's health falls below a certain amount, then do this, sort of scripting your pet. What do you think about that?
I'm all for more intelligent pet play. I've talked a lot about Blade and Soul and how you actually physically had to control and activate the abilities on your own. It wasn't like an auto play, like a lot of pet classes are in games. It'd be interesting if you could do script things, if you could, kind of set boundaries for your pet and scenarios and scripting and macros would be kind of cool to me. I think it's a really good idea personally. And I think that it would make me respect pet classes a lot more because I think a lot of times pet classes are like turn it on and forget about it type of things where the pet does so much damage or it is such a percentage of how you play that your play isn't as important. So I think that having the ability to more so affect the pet's individual play would make a pet class, in my opinion, more of a respectable class. It's really interesting. Well, pet classes are typically like considered the lower skill classes for the most part. I'm not saying every game somebody will mention something that's not, but I think a lot of times they're sort of like, when you look at the grand scheme of the classes, a pet class is usually a good starter class. And I'd like to see a pet class be more in depth, more of a higher ceiling. So I would like to see that.
Yeah, I kind of thought you'd go the other way on that. I thought you'd sort of say, if you're scripting it, it's even further making it easier than it needs to be, right? Like you're not actively managing your pet. I thought because that's kind of the way I was looking at it. I'm like, this is kind of like, part of being a class that has a pet, if you're like a summoner, for example, is managing your pet in real time. And if you're scripting it to do these things, I get that there's there's a certain talent in that because it's kind of like programming to a way, but I feel like it's just automating something that you should be doing in real time. I don't know. That was sort of my take on it.
I guess it goes into you're definitely right there now that I think about it, but maybe it goes into the fact that like you're doing this pre-prep, right? Like a lot of Pantheon is preparing and you're gonna have to write different scripts. So it kind of becomes this game of looking up or writing your own scripts. Of course, is people will be able to look them up. But sort of being able to like plan your pet as part of a boss fight or something that might happen and like what it's going to do. I think that just having that planning would be kind of cool. You're right. It definitely makes it easier once you have it implemented. But I think that the strategy leading in is kind of neat. Again, I liked in Blade and Soul that you literally had to like physically control the pet while you kept yourself out of danger, which was kind of cool. So
right.
And our last question is from Random Rob, and it's a little lengthy, but he kind of goes into depth here. He says he's recently been kicking around ideas around how to make progeny fun. So without being a mandatory grind, so to speak. What are your thoughts on having a progeny point system, or PP for short, that would be somewhat similar to EQ's AA system? You would get a certain amount of progeny points depending on your character's progression at the time, like level plus mastery points or something that you could spend on an expansive list of character buffs, perhaps account-wide buffs. Also, what if you were able to play both characters, both the progenied character and the new character, until you were able to get to like a certain level for the new character? Would that soften the blow of losing a raid level character for a new one? You would have to otherwise spend time getting back to level. So what do you think there?
I think those are some good ideas. The progeny system has been something that gets talked about, debated the merits of a lot, and some people love it. Usually people love it or hate it. There's really very little middle ground with this, and something like this could definitely fill in some of those concerns people have expressed. I do like the idea of, sort of having, because it's a progeny, so you don't like lose your other character immediately. Like you do have a certain window of overlap between them. I think that's kind of a cool idea. Yeah, I don't know. Some of this could work. It depends a lot on how they want to, what the goal of the progeny system is. Because if it's to encourage, long-term play by having these long-term goals, the A system kind of feeds into that a little more. I don't know. What do you think? It's sort of a big question. I'm not sure how I feel about it overall. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. And you brought up the point that Progeny's talked about a lot and debated about a lot, and it is literally the system we have the absolute least clarity on out of anything in Pantheon right now.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's going to be a launch thing. We don't know if it's going to be an expansion thing. We don't know if your character is going to die when you do it. You don't know if your character retires. You don't know if you're still going to be able to play it. There is so much around Progeny that is such a mystery, and it's a tough solve in my opinion. Like, I would have a really hard time just getting rid of Minus. Like, and I get that there's all this benefit that could come from it, and I guess that could make me convinced. But if I bust my ass in Pantheon to level up, which is supposed to take forever, and we're doing endgame raid content and farming and making some money off some of the drops we're getting, at what point am I going to be like, hey guys, I'm out. I'm going to start a new character and kill this one? That's a tough sell for me. There's a lot of people that are into Progeny, but if it goes that way, and I don't think it's going to, I seem to remember something about Joppa saying they really don't want to kill off your character. So I'm curious, like, what kind of penalties would occur, or is it just a benefit? Like, could Progeny just be a benefit to the new character? There's just so many question marks. It's really hard to get into a deep conversation for me. I know a lot of people are doing it, but I'm kind of sitting back waiting to get more info.
Yeah, I am too.
All right, and that's it for our mailbox for this week.
Sit back and relax. It's time for The Lore You Know. And to finish the show, we're going to talk about an excerpt from The Tale of the Scar. If there ever was an opposite to any good thing in every race, the Scar would stand alone in the extreme. Suicidally vicious, tribal and short-sighted, the Scar fear only their Nine God, and are fervent only in their hatred. A ravenous desire to consume fills their thin predatorial size and build, and they attack to overwhelm quickly, losing exceptional endurance. Their role on the stage of Terminus has the most uncertainty, for their battles rage as much as within Scargal as outside of it. What truth can be grasped from a race that keeps no written records of its past? Futile search for knowledge regarding Terminus's most recent arrivals has been compelled more by concern than curiosity, until the elves stole from Scargal one unfortunate informant, a young Khajan slave named Baknoy. Her testimony has borne scrutiny and the passage of time horrifyingly well. It was a lens that helped burn through the fog of myths and madness that attends these awful beasts, her broken translated words piercing a veil of fear and assumption. She recalled they spoke of a planet called Deshoth, but without a shred of longing. Their one deity had a name very similar to Deshoth. We learned the name is the Nine God. Towards it, they held something much closer to hate. And that's the lore you know.
Well, awesome. And that will conclude us. So thank you for leading us out with some lore, Theric. I want to give a big shout out once again to our raiding party. It's sort of a raid, a little small. We might have to be careful. Don't overpull. But with Caffeine Injected, Crow Singing, Sparoh, Bountycode, Mox, Hady, Kamar, We Smoke Bitcoins, and Bobo. Thank you guys for being in our adventure party, for donating to the cause. We really appreciate it. And a huge, huge thank you to Vendini with donating an amazing pledge package to hopefully a new discoverer out there, someone who's wanted to pledge but hasn't been able to pull the trigger. Hopefully we're able to help and excite you and get you invested in that. So thank you, Vendini, for making that happen for the community. Huge, huge thing there. And guys, this week is going to be a crazy one. So I hope you'll join us. Monday night, we got our MMORPG classes. Tuesday night, we'll be recording our footage. Wednesday, I'm sure we're going to be meticulously going over our footage. Thursday night, you're going to see the developers stream to watch our group play. Then we're going to follow that up on Pantheon Plus U with some reviews of it. Then we're going to have probably an onslaught of content coming from all the content creators around this. So we hope you guys will enjoy all of that comes out. Again, as we said earlier, please let us know with questions or things you'd like to see when we're doing our runs, or just anything that you can ask for that we can provide, we want to do. So Theric, I hope you're ready for a crazy week, because this rewind's just kicking it off, man.
Yep. Buckle up. I'm ready to go.
All right. We'll see you guys all this week.
Yeah. See you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Be sure to follow Minus and all Pantheon Plus related content on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube under the name Pantheon Plus. Also, be sure to follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter. Keep up to date on all Pantheon Rise of the Fallen information on www.pantheon.plus, the definitive source for all media of Pantheon. Until next time.